First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Gainesville police are joining critics of the narrowed portion of Northwest 8th Avenue, citing safety and emergency response issues. Good evening, I'm Taylor Nunez.
And I'm Larissa Scott. We're joined in our newsroom by Nicole Acevedo with more on the police perspective.
Ladies, for police and everyone else, Northwest Avenue used to act like a shortcut between the downtown core and the west side of town. Now that road is pinched, narrowed to 2 lanes for the stretch just east of 34th Street, and more than 100 officers say that change was a bad idea. Penny Vine says she just moved to Gainesville and she's already had her share of issues when driving along Northwest 8th Avenue.
It goes from 2 lanes to 4 lanes and it gets really packed. So by the time people get to the 4-lane road, they just want to go crazy.
The Texas native and mother of 2 says something needs to be done, and the Gainesville Police Department agrees. After expressing a number of concerns with the redesign, GPD conducted an internal survey to find out how officers feel about the road.
We have officers and EMS personnel that are trying to get from one side of the city to the other. We're looking for the fastest way to do that. And when we're running with our lights and siren on, we have to go around traffic. We have to move around traffic. But when we only have 2 lanes to do so, there's no way for us to get around the traffic.
According to GPD's report, about 90% of the police officers who took the survey say that the changes made here on 8th Avenue from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road behind me are actually more harmful than helpful to drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists.
Mayor Ed Brady says GPD's opinion should be taken seriously.
The city staff under the city manager did not really seek public safety input into the design or what it might do to emergency response times. So that bit of information was held at bay. Now it's actually going to be a central part of the conversation.
Even though this conversation did not happen in today's commission meeting, Mayor Brady does plan on bringing it to the floor before the end of the year.
I'm an optimist. I think there's a good chance we can get at least 4 votes to go back to 4 lanes and to build a bike path along the sidewalk. It's such a common sense proposal.
In the fall of 2012, WUFT News broke the story of a plan to narrow that stretch of 8th Avenue. When the city took action in the summer of 2013, commissioners decided to make it a trial with just repainting the lanes and trying it out. Now, more than a year later, Mayor Ed Brady and others want to make a more permanent decision before resurfacing in the lock-in design. Nicole Acevedo, WUFT News.
Today, the Florida Board of Governors approved the contracts for new presidents at UF and FSU. Kent Fox is moving to Florida to take over at UF starting January 1st. He was recently the provost at Cornell University. John Thrasher just won re-election to his Florida Senate seat, but he'll resign to start at FSU on Monday. Some House members are eyeing that Senate seat, which could cause a ripple effect of special elections.
The homeless shelter in Gainesville, known as Grace Marketplace, received a new laundry room today, all from donations. City officials confirmed Hampton Inn & Suites in downtown Gainesville donated $20,000 for 6 new washers and dryers at the shelter. The city of Gainesville fronted $300 to cover extra installation costs. The city promised the shelter the extra utilities 2 weeks ago, and the donation arrived on time.
If it wasn't for this donation, we would be still using a collection of ragtag donated machines that tend to get here on their last legs, and so they don't last very long, and it's kind of led to some inconsistencies in the laundry room. So at this point, we know we'll have something that can be up and running and stay up and running.
And before today, the shelter was running on just 2 washers and 1 dryer. The rest of them were all broken.
Amendment 1 was the only one of the 3 proposed changes to the state constitution to win approval on Tuesday. The amendment will earmark tax money to fund a 20-year baseline of buying land for conservation purposes. In order to preserve land, however, it has to pass through a series of steps. Step 1, an owner makes a proposal for a Florida Forever deal. Step 2, if a majority of the acquisition council approves, experts will inventory the property. And step 3, after seeing the notes, council members vote on the project, joining the state's wish list.
One of the main things that the ARC does is once a year, and it's coming up in December, we will prioritize all those properties. We have a number of different categories for them. There's, I think, 5 categories.
The Florida Forever Board of Trustees will then review the recommendations and make funding decisions. Those involved are excited there will be more frequent action with the regular funding that Amendment 1 will provide.
Republicans will not take over control of Congress until January, but today they're warning President Obama cooperation will depend on him. The president says he may follow through on a promise he made before the election to go around Congress and sign executive orders on immigration if lawmakers can't pass a bill. NBC's Brian Moore has more.
House Speaker John Boehner is putting President Obama on notice.
When you play with matches, you take the risk of burning yourself.
He says it will be a deal breaker with the incoming Republican-controlled Congress if the president makes good on his promises to change immigration laws with executive orders.
He will poison the well, and there will be no chance for immigration reform moving in this Congress.
The president risks the wrath of Republicans.
I literally am pleading with the President of the United States not to act.
On the other hand, he faces a backlash from his own supporters.
We're here to send a strong message to the president that we won't take any more excuses.
While Republicans call Tuesday's election results a repudiation of the president, the White House sees it differently.
I think that the clear message that is sent by voters across the country is they want to see results in Washington, D.C.
Some ideas that
the president has invited leaders from both parties to the White House on Friday to find common ground on a Capitol Hill that will be controlled by Republicans. Brian Moore, NBC News, Washington.
Boehner says he has no doubt the House will pass a bill to repeal Obamacare.
Taylor, we seem to get these cold fronts once a week now, and our next one arrives tonight.
UF forecaster Tanya Borsalino is in the Weather Center tracking the front. Tanya, where is this front now?
Hi, Taylor. This front is making its way towards the Florida-Georgia border. It had a lot of moisture associated with it this morning, but as you can see on the loop, it is losing its rainfall. As it's making its way down south, its rainfall is slowly dissipating, or quickly dissipating, excuse me, and the cold front will make its way further down south on Friday. By 7 a.m., it'll be completely past us, leaving those cooler temperatures on Friday, and your hour by hour, or your temperatures on Friday morning: 54 in Gainesville, 53 in High Springs, 55 in Hawthorne. Stay tuned for my full weather forecast, where I'll let you know the rain chances for this weekend. Back to you in the studio.
The International Criminal Court announced today that Israel will not be charged for possible war crimes committed at sea back in 2010. Video released by a Turkish organization shows Israeli troops storming an aid boat headed to Gaza. 8 Turks and 1 Turkish American were killed. Israel claims its soldiers were defending themselves from violence, and the ICC prosecutor called it a willful killing, but said the case does not rise to the level where it should be pursued.
After carefully assessing all relevant considerations, I concluded that the potential case or cases likely arising from an investigation into this incident would not be of sufficient gravity to justify further action by the court.
Now, a previous UN report upheld the blockade, but said their use of force seemed excessive.
A demonstration turned violent today in Belgium. 100,000 people gathered to protest against government policies to raise the pension age and cut public services. The marches turned violent when about 200 protesters tossed vehicles upside down and set some on fire. Police responded with water cannons, and at least 14 people were injured during street battles between protesters and police. The government says it must push through the economic measures to keep its budget deficit within European Union constraints.
There's much more ahead on WUFT News, first at 5. After the break, the woman from Pennsylvania whose abduction was caught on tape is now back home, and her abductor is now behind bars.
And families in Liberia are being given special kits to help sanitize their homes and help prevent the spread of Ebola. Stay with us.